Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming to the Orient Association annual meeting. It's such a beautiful day, I considered not coming myself, so thank you for coming. I'm Barbara Friedman, the current president of the Orient Association. We're going to start with a short business meeting where we'll propose a couple of bylaws changes, introduce the board members, vote for officers, have a treasurer's report, and have a quick year in review. Then we'll focus on the water project with our guest speaker, Mary Ann Taylor. The first order of business is to approve the minutes from the last annual meeting. Now, it's only supposed to be members who vote on this, and I'm sure you all read the minutes that we sent yesterday, so. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting? Okay, second? Okay, all in favor? Okay, great. Those minutes are passed. All right. So the next thing, I wanted to briefly remind everyone of who we are, because there's often confusion about the various local organizations, so much so that the Oyster Ponds Community Activities, I already said the wrong thing, has changed its name to Poquatuck Hall. The Orient Association is a civic association whose main purpose is to provide forums for the community to learn about issues and express their views and concerns. Our goal is to find constructive approaches to improve our community and to help solve problems that we face. In order to better express this mission in our bylaws, we're proposing a change to Article 3. The change is the rewording of the purpose of our organization to include the idea that part of our purpose in educating the community is to inspire community members to express informed opinions about issues to the appropriate local and state officials. The second proposed change has to do with term limits for officers. Because of COVID, Drianne, Tony, and I all began our current positions in January of 2022. So if we were to strictly observe the current bylaws, we would not be able to serve for another full year. Given that the three of us have expressed willingness to stay in our current positions, we're proposing to extend term limits from 3 to 4 years. Is there a motion to adopt these changes? Yes, Daniel. And as a second, Mark Reisenfeld. All in favor? Aye. Okay. All opposed? Are you opposed? What?
There's no discussion?
Oh, you want to discuss it?
I do.
Okay.
The Orient Association was founded primarily for the purpose of express two objectives to the change. The Orient Association traditionally always non-advocacy, providing forums for a variety of views on a variety of topics. Additionally, raise a certain amount of courage to form their own organization or against whatever issue that might be. So to change this to an advocacy organization, it's quite undemocratic. Our community is not going to vote. Advocating for directors that really majority of the board hardly think that 3 people represent Orient. So I plan to vote against them. Probably going to be the only one. So that's like probably not what it's going to form for.
Well, I don't think it necessarily is saying that we would become an advocacy organization. It's only that we're saying that part of our purpose is to inform people so that they can advocate for themselves with
Perhaps if you wisely visit that clear, that would be quite a different matter.
Okay, Venetia had her, go ahead. Yes.
So I'm Venetia Hans, and I was president of the Orient and very familiar with the bylaw. Would have to check this, but it's my memory that if a majority of the active members of OA want OA to pursue a particular position in town hall, that was sufficient. Anyone in the community can become a member and disagree by not voting for that. That's how we didn't have that word. But that was my understanding of how we.
Okay, Drianne, would you like to speak? I mean, the wording actually says advocating for a well-informed Orient community. That's what the wording of the bylaws is, the new wording. So it's not saying we're an advocacy organization, we're advocating for a well-informed community.
That's actually something completely different. We're talking about advocating to the Orient community, not from the Orient or the government.
That's true. Yes. But
What's wrong with the existing?
nothing really.
Not broken.
And well, you know, yes.
That's some sense what guided the wording here. Some of the board felt it was more active. Others of the board felt that we should be less active. Where do you want to advocate? So informed and then voice it. I don't have an answer for your question. I did this pretty thoroughly. And I do appreciate it.
So is the question about?
Well, again, if you take out the parenthetical phrase, giving a voice to advocate, the way we perform, all sorts of things. Giving a voice to is forums that people
Perfectly remember. Saying exactly the same thing. I think you mentioned that's about why change it at all, and you say, well, it's really given a very good answer. So why not? What's the purpose of change?
Okay, let's let Nicole speak.
On the point of language, it is more concise. The other thing, as Barbara said correctly, it says advocating for. The reason for the change, as I understand it, highlights that this is also a so the language altogether after the parent.
Yeah, I think the word advocating is throwing us off, but should we have another vote on this? Because we have a lot to talk about today.
Our membership, I don't think.
Well, it was. This was sent out in a newsletter, and it was sent out again yesterday. It was. Well, we didn't have a vote by email. We're having the vote now. Probably not, but our bylaws state that when we vote, it's a majority of who is present, attendees. Tim.
Clearly, the word advocating. One of my fellow Latin scholars is advocating for giving. Why don't we just strike? I'm not advocating for. I would have said strike. You're walking. So he clearly advocating is. So if we're launching off in that direction, we've got
Okay.
5 lines versus 7 lines. We're to strike either advocate or
Okay. Okay.
Every 4 members
you want to have a motion to vote on striking advocating for, and then we'll have a vote on striking giving voice?
No.
Okay, is there a motion for striking the advocating for part of this bylaw?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so we have to, yeah, all in favor of striking the advocating for? Okay. All opposed? Well, we're not giving voice to you anymore. So,
Now you want a motion
so now we
to accept
yes, so do we accept the modified bylaws without the and advocating for? Okay, Anisha and Daniel is seconding. Okay, who is in favor of adopting these bylaws changes with the aforementioned change? Okay, and who is opposed? You're still opposed? Okay. All right, the motion passes. Okay. Next slide.
How about the 3 to 4 years?
Oh, no, well, it was both things. Is that okay? All right. Okay. Board members in the audience, could you please stand up? It's half the audience here today as board members. We have Chris Wedge, Daniel Watts, Brianne Benner, Emily Caulfield, Nicole Garrett, and Mark Reisenfeld, and Tony Ash are the board members who are present today.
May we say thank you to you all before you go on that?
Yes, thank you. And also, we would like to thank Jerry Woodhouse, who is leaving the board this year. Jerry serves on the town's Historic Preservation Commission and has been an OA board member for several years. We have one new board member this year, Jane Ash. Would you like to stand up, Jane? Who some of you may know has formed an Orient Emergency Management Committee. Jane has years of experience as an emergency management coordinator, so we are lucky to have her here. Now I will ask Venetia Hands, who served on the nominating committee, to nominate the slate of officers.
Up here already.
Yes. It's not a surprise.
So I served on the nomination committee with Miriam.
Oh, here, wait, I'm supposed to give you this.
Oh,
Miriam, what's Miriam's last name?
Grayson. Foster something. And myself and Nicole was on the board, and Jerry Woodhouse was on the nominating committee. And we actually looked quite hard for somebody who might put their hand up and become president. Give this woman a break, but we couldn't. So she is volunteering, and she already said to continue for another year as president. Brianne, who has been doing incredible work, especially with the civics across the whole of the North Fork, is agreeing to stay on as vice president. Tony over here is agreeing to stay on as treasurer, and Nicole is agreeing to step up to be secretary. So that's the one change. And I think that we all said in this process, we need to improve the pipeline here. So expect some more conversations. But I would like to hear a motion to accept this, or other nominations from the floor. Actually, that's what I should do first. Are there any other nominations from the floor? Hi, Debbie. Are you wanting to say something, sir? No, that was you. I thought you opened your mouth to say something. Huh? Okay. All right. So can I have a motion to accept the slate? Thank you, Daniel. And Emily, seconding? Thank you. All in favor? Aye, aye, aye. All opposed? Right, done.
Okay.
Oh,
Congratulations.
hello, hello, hello.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you. Okay, now let me introduce Tony Ash, I guess who's already been introduced, our webmaster and treasurer, who will give the treasurer's report. Oh, gotta speed things up here.
I want to thank Venetia, and also before I get into the specifics of the report, I'm going to come up against my 4-year limit at the end of this term, and I'm hoping, one, to encourage somebody or somebody's to pick up the treasurer mantle, and probably the best way to do that is have somebody who's willing, either on the board or who would like to join the board and has a tiny bit of skills juggling numbers, to shadow me during this year, so that they're ready to become treasurer in the coming year. So that's my little pitch. So in any event, there's a relatively uneventful year financially. As you can see, we took in about $2,600 in donations and spent it in a variety of small ways. There are two outside the normal expenses. One is that we decided this year to donate $1,000 to OCA Pocatuck Hall. They've been so kind in allowing us to hold our meetings here and supporting us in so many ways. We thought we'd give back. We'll see how our donations go in the coming years, whether we can continue that. And we've also agreed to help support the OCA calendar, and so every other year we contribute the cost of the online calendar, which I think is $250. So that goes on that bottom line that says app, Zoom, website, MailChimp. Outside the budget, we've had the ongoing water project. Sorry, Kathleen. I will drop the OCA and all further presentations and defer to Pocatuck Hall. Thank you again. So as you know, we've been working on our water project for a few years now. And we had one water project expense, an invoice from CDM Smith for $14,600 and some odd dollars, which normally we kind of pull outside of our normal budget, but just know that that is an expense. And if we go to our next page, we have a prospective budget. And if anybody has questions, just raise their hands and I can go back. Our prospective budget, which in general looks very similar to the past year, because I don't see any great changes in our operations, that we'll continue to have coffee and treats at our forums. We still have to do directors and officers insurance. We send out occasional mailings, which we have to print and pay postage on. And we have a number of online apps, including Zoom, website, MailChimp, which is our email thing, and Join It, which is our membership management online software that we spend on. On below the line, you'll see that I keep a water project budget separate. So we've taken in over the course of the past couple of years, $67,000 in donations. We spent about 53,000 of that, and we're contracted to spend 12,754 more, which I would expect will probably wind down that portion of the water project in the coming years. So we'll wind up with about $1,200 in water project funds, and I'm sure there'll be additional little things that go along with the project, helping us publicize the results and things like that. So that's where our water project stands now. And I know Mary Ann Taylor is going to talk a lot about the results of the project, and I'll leave it to her to do that. And then our balance sheet, just to know we still remain solvent, which is good. We have about $30,000 in the bank, of which we probably owe almost $17,000 on our contract to finish the water project. We don't have any current liabilities. We run everything on a cash basis, so I don't have any outstanding invoices. And that is the short treasurer's report. I'll turn it back over to Barbara unless somebody has questions.
Oh, thank you, Tony. Okay, here's a list of the events that we organized this year. And along with events such as these, we've been sending out newsletters periodically, which everyone reads, and have tried to keep our website updated as well. If by chance you're not on our mailing list, please sign up, and there's a sheet in front to sign up, as well as some postcards with a QR code. You don't have to be a member to keep informed, but obviously we would like you to be a member if you're eligible to be a member, have to live in or have a business in Orient. In March, we hosted a zoning update meeting with Heather Lanza and Mark Terry, and Brianne's going to talk a little bit about that.
So the zoning project that the town kicked off started a year ago, and is probably going to go for another year. So we're right in the middle of it. In March, we had a meeting in this room where we had very good turnout, where people voted on issues of concern to them. So all the hamlets, all the civics did the same exercise. Chamber of Commerce did the same exercise, and the issues are mostly what you see up here. In Orient, water topped of the list, coastal resilience topped the list, housing affordability. So then you had a sort of a drop off with all the other issues: farm sustainability, land preservation. The historic district here was pretty high as well. So not only just preservation of the historic district, but clarification of it as a district. So this project is pretty big deal. They haven't updated zoning for decades, 30 years. Mark is our zoning expert here. Bruce is on the zoning advisory update committee, which meets every couple of weeks. Right now, where we are is that all that input that took place in March, all that feedback from all the communities, all the hamlets, is being filtered through planning to the consultant, and they will issue a draft report in the fall. We have the opportunity right now to write our recommendations, and I say write because there is you can't read it. You can't read it. At the lower left, in red, it says zoning update at Southold, New York. Okay. We can send this out to everybody so that you can actually put it in writing, because Heather Lanza, who's the head planner, said between now and the fall, she would appreciate it if we put our recommendations in writing. So the civics together will do it. Orient Association will do it as an individual association, because we have some issues that are different than the other civics. And then individuals. Again, for Heather, the best way to do it is to put it in writing to that mailbox so she can pull it all together. And again, the ZAC is meeting and digesting very similar information. But the update is you're going to get another update in the fall. So we'll all be convening here to look at that report and see what's recommended and give feedback on that. It's supposed to be finished in spring of next year. Done. Hearings, code, done. So important project.
I would say that now, or the ordinance and waiting for the fall.
Yes, yes. So that's why that's
I think the
important.
ordinance long, and I think big question about a moratorium didn't get very far. Like they did. That's kind of it. Or, voices in writing.
Yes.
Okay, well, here are some other things that are concerns that may or may not be part of the zoning update. Deer and tick-borne diseases, the fire department, younger people in schools. Some of these things came up at the zoning meeting that we had here, but they're not necessarily solved by zoning. Noise pollution, causeway flooding and utility lines, land preservation and limiting subdivisions, and water. Always an issue, and that's why we're going to talk about it today. And this is a call for volunteers. In the coming year, we'll continue to meet with the other hamlet civics to discuss shared interests. We'll continue to follow the town board and the various town commissions and committees as they discuss and act on topics of interest to our hamlets so that we can inform the community about those issues if necessary. There will be 2 more meetings of the zoning update project, and we will help organize those public meetings. We don't have any other specific meetings planned at the moment. The North Fork Civics organized a meeting that is next Thursday evening with Chris Gobler, who's the guru of surface water. And he will be speaking at the Southold, what's it called? The Recreation Center at 6 o'clock on Thursday night. So that's a good follow-up to what Marianne's going to talk about, because they'll be talking about all of the bays. So I think that's about it. And now, if you, we really would appreciate having some volunteers for an events committee, a communications committee, so we can get the word out better about our meetings, finance to help Tony and maybe take over for Tony next year. And then if you're interested in all this other stuff that's going on, a government action committee. And so there's sign-up sheets in the back, and please sign up. The future of Orient is in your hands. Now Daniel Watts is going to introduce Marianne so we can get on with our guest speaker. Daniel, oh, you need the little thing. There you go.
Can I stick this here, or you? Okay, I'll just do this. Great. So I think many of you are very familiar with this water project. Can you hear me back there? Jen, can you hear me? Okay, great. And I think most of the people in the room have donated to it, but I thought I'd just update people on what we're doing and why we're doing it, because it's been kind of a long project. We started about 3 years ago, and we started with just 3 what seemed like pretty simple questions. One was about the water underneath our feet, the aquifer, and the question was about quantity. Do we have enough water in Orient for our needs today and our needs going forward as the community seems to expand? The second was, is that water healthy? What's the direction of the quality of the water that we're all drinking? And can we get some facts on that? And the third was about the bay that surrounds us and the quality of the water in the bay and how that's changed over time. Those are the 3 questions we wanted to answer: quantity and quality of our drinking water, and the quality of the water in the bays that surround us. And none of us are hydrologists or ecologists, so we figured we needed some expertise to help us answer those questions in a thorough and factual way. So we found CDM Smith, and we were very, very lucky. CDM Smith is a large environmental consulting firm with a focus on water. They do water plans for states and counties and cities all over the country. They've done it for 40 or 50 years. And one of their superstars is here with us today, Marianne Taylor. Marianne is a Long Islander. She's been working for CDM Smith for several decades. She has worked on projects for Suffolk County, including being the lead for the 2015 Suffolk County Comprehensive Water Resources Management Plan, and then the 2020 Subwatersheds Wastewater Plan. So she's incredibly familiar with water issues on Long Island, and probably one of the foremost experts on groundwater in our area. So they've done amazing work collecting information from NOAA and USGS and from the DEC and from Suffolk County. And Marianne herself is an civil engineer and environmental engineer, is that right? And has more expertise and a great reputation among everybody we've spoken to for her knowledge of these issues. And we've had a great experience working with her. So with that, today, Marianne will focus on the surface water issues, the health of the bays around us, and give us just a little bit of information on what we've found so far. So that's it.
And I can move around. Is that it?
Well, that's just,
Got it. So I don't know if I'm going to live up to the introduction, but thank you. So we've been working with the Orient Water Committee, and these guys have asked so many thoughtful, deep questions about the water resources. So we have tons of information to share. We're going to try to keep it concise. I'm going to say this is the brief agenda. We'll go through a quick introduction. How many people were here last year talking about groundwater? Maybe I should say how many people weren't. I don't. We're going to kind of. All right. So we'll go through that kind of quickly. Then we won't spend a lot of time on groundwater, even though it's important. We'll take maybe about 10 minutes to talk about your surface water resources. We're going to talk about the top 3 water resource issues that we as a group feel are most important to you, some potential solutions, and then we'll have a little time for questions. And I would say if I'm saying something that's not clear, just like, let's make it more of a conversation. Like, don't let me keep running on like a train if you don't know what I'm talking about, all right? Okay, so this is just a quick recap. Here you see that the typical cross-section north to south through Long Island's aquifer system, and you see it goes from 200 feet maybe on the north shore down to like 1,200 feet of saturated fresh groundwater supply for everybody, underlain by bedrock. You guys have a totally unique situation. Yours is very different. Your water supply is these 2 little bubbles of fresh water underlain by salt water, okay? And so we're cutting a cross section from, oh yeah, you can see, right? If I show it here, from west to east, kind of along Main Road there, you can see you've got maybe about 85 feet of fresh water above the salt water, maybe about 55 feet east of Narrow River there. And even this is exaggerated. I know some of the discussions we've had are, do we show this vertical exaggeration so that you can actually see what's going on? Or do you want to see it in real scale where you can hardly see how, just to emphasize how shallow and how constrained your system is. So this is a 10 times vertical exaggeration. Some people found that hard to see, so we have 50 times vertical exaggeration. You see, this is the extent of your freshwater bubble. And just, yep. Oh dear. I want to show you just a quick little animation if I can find my cursor. There we go. I'm not sure why it's, there we go. Blow it up. And so this is just put into one of those little programs that kind of shows you, I'll show you as we go through. Going to kind of turn you on the side. Again, 10-1, you can see kind of the bluffs along the north side of Orient. You can see how low-lying you are on the south side once you get towards the bays. And then as we flip over, kind of cutting a slice through again along Main Road there, you can see where the fresh water is, and then the saltwater interface below you. And we're going to kind of flip it around. There we go. And we'll turn it over kind of so you just get a sense. 10 times. 10 times, Barbara. That's 10 times. And you can still see there's not a lot of relief there. Your bluffs are, you know, there's more relief in the bluffs on the north shore than there is on the and this is kind of really what I wanted you to see too. You can see underneath, you've got salt water coming at you from all directions, from below, from the sides, the north, the south. And yeah, that's that. So let's get out of here, get back to the slideshow. Okay, and this is just a quick review. All of your fresh water is derived from recharging precipitation, right? There's no other source of fresh water. All of that fresh water is either ultimately withdrawn by a supply well, by one of your wells, or it discharges down through the aquifer and out to one of the bays, the sounds, the harbors, the streams. So it comes in and it moves through pretty quickly. Anything that you guys do at the ground surface, anything that we put on top, anything that you spill, any fertilizers you apply, any pesticides that you apply, anything that you wash down your drain, anything that you flush down your toilet, any tanks that leak, all of that gets down into is washed down into the groundwater and then travels through again and is either removed at a well or it discharges to the surface water. So the theme here is anything that you can do to protect your groundwater, you're also going to be protecting your surface water, okay? And just to be thoughtful about what you're doing. So, yeah. Yep. 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 Yes. But exactly right. You're absolutely right. Yep. That's absolutely right. Absolutely right. I'm going to say most of the wells in Nassau County are hundreds of feet deep. There's a very thick, 200-foot thick, productive. So just one zone in the Magathie Aquifer is about 200 feet thick. And that's where most of the public supply wells in Nassau County are screened. But no, you guys have very limited resource here in the upper glacial. We said maximum of about 85 feet thick. I think it's coming from the Magathie, but don't quote me on that. I'm not positive. I'm sorry. It's blended with upper glacial and put it together. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So then just a quick, this is just a contour map of the thickness of your aquifer. So you see right here, south of Main Road, maximum thickness on the west side here of 85 feet. As you get down closer to the coast, we get down maybe 5 feet, 10 feet. These are 5-foot contour intervals. And as we go to the east, maximum thickness just over 55 feet. And you can see how the you can see how the thickness drops off, particularly as you get down to the point, which is why they find chlorides in the state park wells and the ferry wells, and they don't have a lot to work with there. So getting to Daniel's original question, does Orient have enough water? We looked at this in a couple of ways. So doing a water balance, looking at precipitation, using the Orient gauge and the Mattatuck gauge, on average, and every year is different, right? On average, you guys get over 4 million gallons of water per day recharging your aquifer. This other little piece here, 157,000 gallons per day, less than 5%. That's water that recharges, that's pumped out, you recharge from your septic systems. So that's where that comes from. Going out, on average, just over 500,000 gallons per day is used for showers, cleaning, flushing, laundry, and so forth. That varies from well under 100,000 gallons per day, say in January. It's up well over 1 million gallons in the summer, but on average, it's over 500,000. The non-community supplies, so the public supplies like the schools, the ferry, the park, and so forth, very small amount, 8,500 gallons per day on average. So that's not a big hit on your aquifer. A question mark, and what varies from year to year, is the agricultural pumpage. Again, it depends on how much precipitation you're getting, what crops are being grown that year, and so forth. So we kind of bounded that problem, maybe 100 to 550. So maybe 20% of what you use for potable use, up to pretty even with what you're using for residential use. Now the big piece here, and this is important, this is the water that discharges out to the Sound, the Orient Harbor, the Halleck Bay. This is the subsurface discharge. And that's important. And here's where I changed a little bit, Barbara. That's important because it's keeping this saltwater interface at bay, right? This fresh water is going out and it's keeping this boundary here. Once you put wells in, once you reduce that water table elevation or you reduce that discharge, then the salt water can start to creep in. And so you can reduce this water table by pumping too much, right, out of the aquifer. So you see the well here, it's either going to pull the water in from the coast. Do you want to change seats? Yeah, I'm sorry, because I keep standing in front of you. I'm sorry. Keep pulling it in this way, saltwater infusion, or it can come up from beneath, and that's we call upconing. So that's part of why it's kind of important to maintain that water table. And that's another way that we looked at it. We said, after all these years of you guys pumping, how has the water table changed? And this is from a well that Suffolk County Department of Health Services has right here. I think it's going to say it's south of Main Road. And these are water levels that have been measured since 1958. So it's a really good long period of record, right? We're not going to focus too much in the 1960s on the drought there. If we look after the drought, we say the water table has not gone down. If anything, it's gone up a little bit. So you're stable. It's not like as a community, you're running out of water. The caveat there is that the wells along the coast are vulnerable to saltwater intrusion, especially during the summer months when the recharge is lower. A lot of water is lost to evapotranspiration, a lot more people out here using the water. So the coastal wells are particularly vulnerable. And if you pump too high in the inland wells, you're gonna cause upconing. So as a community, you're good. Individual areas, you have to be careful. Talk about groundwater quality. Yes, of course. How much? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The build out number, I thought we were still okay, but you start to get dicey around the edges, and the reason why I'm hesitating is not because of your water supply, it's because of that underflow to the surface waters. Not even to that, I'm more concerned about saltwater intrusion. I'm more concerned about climate change and sea level rise than I am about development for saltwater. But I measured. And you might be able to do that on a broad area. I would hesitate to do it here because it really depends on where you're going to do the pumping. You know what I mean? Like it might be okay to pump in one spot, but if that pumpage was moved down the road 1,000 feet, it could cause problems. So I would, yes. Yes. Vulnerable. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely true. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I don't know how, I think that would be challenging to implement on a transient scale. As precipitation changes, you know what I mean? Like some years are good, so you would maybe we could talk after about that because I could probably go for half an hour, like thinking out loud. And okay, we'll get back to quality for a second. Groundwater is different than surface water. Surface water you can see, right? Groundwater is beneath your feet. How do you know if it's good or not? How do you know if it's safe or not? So EPA and the state established they establish maximum contaminant levels, like the water quality criteria. And there's a long process where they evaluate all the different health risks and they put on safety factors. But that's what we do. We take samples of wells from well water, we compare it to those criteria, and we say good, bad, or indifferent. So we looked at a batch of different contaminants. Just today, we're just going to touch on a couple because we talked about them last time. I did want to mention nitrogen because there's been a lot of focus on that. I think that's kind of where we started here. Nitrogen is important to me for 3 reasons. Number one, there is a maximum contaminant level established of 10 parts per million, 10 milligrams per liter. That's the health risk there is specifically blue baby syndrome, which is not a problem here. I do want to mention, and if you're going to talk to Chris Gobler, I know he'll explain in more detail. There's been a whole lot more literature recently that says much lower levels, 2, 3, 4 milligrams per liter, can cause cardiovascular issues and potential cancer causes. So we'll let Chris talk about that more because he's delved into that more. But so it's from a drinking water perspective. In my mind, for the past few decades, nitrogen is a really good tracer. It's easy to measure, right? It's conservative. That means it doesn't break down, it doesn't degrade, it moves with the groundwater. It's an indicator of anything else that you might be flushing. So it's all those pharmaceuticals and personal care products, all those things that you may not be looking for, may not be measuring. If you see nitrate that is associated with wastewater, that's an indication that there's other things happening too. So that's the second reason why it's important. The third reason is because remember we said all that groundwater is discharging to the surface waters. The thresholds that you're looking for a healthy surface water are 2 orders of magnitude less than this 10 milligrams per liter. They're more like 0.3, 0.4 milligrams per liter. So it takes a lot less nitrogen to impact surface waters. So that's some of the reasons why we're focusing on nitrogen here. So Department of Health Services, Suffolk County takes a lot of, they're happy to do your sampling just to tell you what kind of water you're drinking. Samples collected between 2014 and 2021, almost 20% exceeded that MCL, so not good. And then even worse, 54% exceeded the 6 milligram per liter target for groundwater management zone 4, which is where you're sitting. So that's an indication that groundwater isn't all that it should be. This map here is the results of this was done for the Subwatershed's wastewater plan, where we just simulated based on land use, based on overlying land use, what we would anticipate the steady state or the equilibrium long-term average nitrogen concentration to be. The red areas here are greater than 10 milligrams per liter. So that's not where you want to be. The blue areas here are really good. Less than a milligram per liter, that's like the equivalent to undeveloped conditions. So we can circle back to that. We just talked about why nitrogen is important. So let's just jump into PFAS for a second. Of course. Yes. Yep. Yep. Okay.
So the highest nitrogen concentration, red bits,
Yep.
much of which is wetlands, not very buildable, but
Good.
it's really bad for the living water.
Correct.
Correct?
Well, let's wait till we get to the surface water part.
Okay.
But yes,
All
the
right.
ground, yeah.
Corollary of that is that most of the places that are in green
Mm-hmm.
are not having serious nitrogen. So this
That's
is
correct.
important to me because if you take the average for everything,
Mm-hmm.
then it looks like everybody needs to get a water filter.
I see what you're saying.
But if I look at this, most people, in fact, don't need the water.
For nitrogen. Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, no, good distinction.
That's where most of the action happens.
Yes, this is simulated. It does match. We had another graphic that showed the private wells. It matched pretty well. These are some of the non-community wells, these green triangles. So they matched pretty well, 2 to 4, 2 to 4. I mean, we did validate the model, but there's places where it's not detailed enough to get, yep. Oh, good. So PFAS. So Barbara shared with me this expanded study area map. Just a quick update. New York State was one of the first states to establish the drinking water standard for PFAS. For 2 of the PFAS compounds, there's thousands of them, right? So they established it 10 parts per trillion. Remember we said nitrogen was like 10 parts per million. This is 10 parts per trillion for PFAS and PFOA. In your study, speaking to Department of Health Services 2 weeks ago, right now you're running about 50% of the homes that have been tested exceed these levels. So that's concerning. And just want to mention that EPA recently set even lower levels down to 4 parts per trillion for both for PFAS and PFOA, and also new limits of 10 for 4 of the other compounds. So this is something, there's new information every day. It's a very dynamic situation that's changing as we go along. A lot of the public water suppliers, if they're designing down to get to 10 parts per trillion, they're going to get down, they're trying to hit 0. They're not trying to get to 10 or 9 or 8. They're trying to get to 0. That's how they're designing it. So I'm not so concerned about the 4 to 10 part per trillion difference, but whatever filter that you're putting on your house, make sure it's tested and validated and get your samples done. We're going to talk about climate change considerations quickly because we'll talk about it more later. We did a lot of projections of sea level rise using different models and consulting like the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association information. The projections that we did were based on New York State's high medium projections for the Long Island region, because that was consistent with NOAA's projections at the time with the intermediate projection. Just wanted to mention that the state came out with new proposed projections, I think the end of April. So it's, they're actually the same through 2050. So that was good. They get scary as you go out 2150, but it's hard to project out that far. They have a new category, the rapid ice melt one, which is very intimidating. At any rate, the predicted inundation from sea level rise, to your point, a lot of this is wetland area already. The blue areas are areas where the this sea is supposed to come up from like the coast, you know, so it'll be connected to a surface water. This green area here is where the sea level rise, the water is going to come up like through the ground there. It's not connected to a surface water. So it'll be coming like from beneath. If you remember that what we showed from looking at the bottom of that freshwater interface where it was really narrow. I have another graphic in a second. 2100, it's ways out, but you can see all this area in blue is projected to be flooded. This is also from NOAA. These are the areas they've targeted as currently vulnerable to high tide flooding. And you guys would know better than me if this is actually what you see. It goes right up over Main Road there. I don't, you know, by Narrow River. But this is what we're showing. So, okay, this is good. This is what I want to show you. The importance from a water supply standpoint, though. See this yellow line? This is where we think the saltwater interface is now. Thank you. Yep. This is the, I think this is the 50 foot, 50 times exaggeration. But by 2100 with sea level rise, that base is projected to come up by about 20 feet plus or minus. And here's where you can see in the Narrow River area along Main Road there, where it's predicted to come up and kind of hit the ground surface. So that's like the distinction between coming in from, you know, the bay and coming in from below. What this is going to mean is that a community as a whole, you lose about 20% of your freshwater, you know, reservoir underground.
That's saltwater also.
Mm-hmm. To some degree, yeah.
That means water increase.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yes. Is that a question, or are you telling me that's what you see? Yes. 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 That's the answer. So let's move to surface water. Again, you can see a lot of it, but there's a lot of parameters that we look at to kind of judge the health of the water. New York State has established different categories of surface waters. You guys, all your waters are in the highest category. It's called the SA category, and saline and A's as in the best. And these waters are characterized by their usage, like what criteria do we have to meet in order to meet these best uses. So for you guys, it's primary contact recreation, like swimming, right? You should be able to swim with no problem without being exposed to any health issues. Shellfishing, fin fishing, secondary contact recreation, and all that. There's other areas where fish passage is the best you're going to do, or secondary contact, but you guys are the best. So that's why these criteria matter here. This is from a USGS continuous recorder at Orient Harbor. We're talking about dissolved oxygen, I'm sorry. And there's a lot of interesting things. I could go on for a long time, but we'll just try to keep it a little bit focused. You can see how the dissolved oxygen goes up and down over the course of a day, over the course of a month, also through the course of the year. The dissolved oxygen concentrations are much higher in the cooler winter months, much lower in the hot summer months for a few reasons. The one that I didn't want to forget these numbers. That's because the water can hold, one of the reasons is the water can hold a lot more oxygen. Colder water can hold more oxygen. So the saturation value at 40 degrees, when your water is 40 degrees, is 14.5 milligrams per liter of oxygen, really high. Standard, that the state has established here is 4.8. The cold water can hold a lot more than that. In the summer, when the water temperature goes up to like 70, it's down to 8.5 milligrams per liter. So there's not a lot of room there if you have material that's eating up that oxygen. And oxygen is important, right? So that the fish can flourish and the shellfish, and you need a good supply of oxygen. Looking at your system here, you can see you're almost always above this 4.8. This is the chronic standard, and the state actually allows for occasional excursions below 4.8, recognizing in natural systems that's what happens. What they don't want to see is ever slipping below 3 milligrams per liter. And you can see on a couple of occasions that happens. When I look at the data from the Suffolk County Department of Health Services, I don't see any threes because they just take grab samples. You know, this is a very, very complete data set. So overall, your oxygen is really good. Right. Mm-hmm. Yes, 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 absolutely. You guys are in very good shape. We just kind of blew up 1 year here, so you can see through the course of the day, specifically in the summer. In the winter months, you don't have as much going on. In the summer months, you have all those algae, which you need some phytoplankton. You need the zooplankton and phytoplankton. It's the base of the food chain for all the bigger fish. So you want some, you just don't want too much, right? But when you have those algae, they're photosynthesizing, producing oxygen during the day, and you can get supersaturated conditions, you see. And at night, they're breathing, they're respiring, so they're taking up oxygen and they're not giving it back. So you see it depleted in the evening. And this is not contravening the standards because they have a long, complicated equation, an exponential equation that lets you calculate how long can you stay below the 4.8, and you guys didn't violate that. To the best of my knowledge, these standards address that. I think they were developed a long time ago. I think they looked at like 9 different species, and that was probably a variety of finfish and shellfish. What's that? Exactly. And that's the difference to some degree between the chronic and the acute. The chronic could be, I'm sorry, yeah. You can take into account things can be low for a certain period of time because the fish can swim through it and go on. But you can't keep it at less than 3 for very long and expect these to survive. Yeah.
It would be good to know if that does include fish.
Oh, it does.
Sure it does.
Yes. Oh, some could. So, okay, thank you. That's an important distinction too, because when they develop these standards, they take a whole variety of different species, and they usually set them for the more sensitive species. But there's some species that can, yes, absolutely tolerate much lower. Maybe for shorter or longer periods of times. Sometimes it more affects their ability to reproduce successfully and flourish as a community. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And to your point, a lot of times if you're measuring the oxygen up higher in the water body, it's different. You get a different value than you get down lower. Sometimes the water bodies become stratified and the top is getting mixed up with the wind and the currents and all that, whereas the bottom is more kind of stagnant and you've got any of the dead phytoplankton kind of settling out and decaying and sucking up more oxygen. So sometimes the lower portions, the lower segments of a water body have lower oxygen, and that's not good. So this is an overview. When we worked with the county, we evaluated water quality in 191 different subwatersheds. So these are just kind of the scorecards for Orient Harbor, and for Halleck will be coming up next. The parameters that their focus area work group of ecological endpoints, they brought in a whole batch of different experts in their fields. Chris Gobler was one of them, to kind of say, well, what's important, what's not important, what's good, what's bad. These little scales here blue. The blue end is always good. The red end is always bad, okay? Nitrogen load, really good. You're really super low. And this is kind of standardized to the highest and the lowest that we're seeing in the county. So you guys are really good. This particular scorecard is just for the harbor, exactly right. Yep. Residence time is another important parameter because a water body that's really well flushed, where the water is moving through, can take a lot more nitrogen before it becomes impacted, right? So your residence time is very quick. That's great. Total nitrogen is very low. That's good. This 6.1 milligram per liter doesn't look great, but I'm going to tell you it's really not that bad. This was characterized as the 10th percentile, like over the past 10 years. So it's if we took an average, it would be, this is like, what's the worst case that you guys have seen? And the worst case, 6.1, is still pretty good. You know what I mean? Like it's nowhere near the 4.8, and it's close to the 3. So this.
Yeah, can you read us again?
Oh, what the parameters are? Okay, sure. So that's dissolved oxygen. Yep, 6.1 over the last 10 years. That's right. That's right. So it's a pretty complete data set. It's not the USGS data. This is Suffolk County Department of Health Services data that they've been collecting through the decades. The other parameters that they looked at are harmful algal blooms with environmental effects. And so I think there was 2 over the last 10 years. And then the worst ones are the ones with the human health impacts. And there was 0. So that's really important. Your chlorophyll A concentration, really low. And your Secchi depth, like the depth that you can, that light penetrates in the water body, that's really important both for phytoplankton and also like for your seagrasses. They need light in order to be able to grow. So overall, Orient Harbor had really excellent surface water quality. Did a similar evaluation for Halleck Bay and similar results. Nitrogen load very low. The residence time was a little bit longer because you see you have a very constrained opening there. So water takes a little longer to move out of the bay. Total nitrogen low. Dissolved oxygen was 6.7, actually a little bit better. No HABs, no harmful algal blooms with environmental impacts, and no with human health impacts over the past 10 years. So that's good. That's really good. Your chlorophyll A is super low. Secchi depth was, we looked for 6, and this is like 6.8. Secchi depth isn't maybe like the best indicator because a lot of that, you also have to think, do I have a deep water body? If your water body is only 3 feet deep, you can't get to the 6 feet, but that's okay because you're still getting to the bottom. So overall, oh, did you say something? I'm sorry. Okay. Overall, your nitrogen concentrations are low. The health of the water body is good. Surface water quality so far looks pretty good. We do want to talk a couple about pathogen indicators. Those are other measures that you assess. Right now, the state Department of Health is using Enterococcus as an indicator for swimming, whether or not your beaches are closed. The data that we saw looked fine for that. They use the DEC uses fecal coliform as an indicator of whether or not you can do shellfishing. Your open waters look good. Here, you may not be able to see, this is the 30-day geometric mean should never be less than 200. You're well below that. This is a log graph. So this is really about 10 or 15. It looks like it's probably what the detection limit was. So the open waters, you look good. Where you don't look so good is up in the more constrained areas of Narrow River. And I don't know what the source is. It could be birds. What's that?
We have goats.
Oh, it could be that. It could be goats. It could be runoff. But it doesn't flush out that easily. So might predate it could. This is from 2014 through 2023, with the highest hits going back to like 2018. So I don't know if that predated the goats. It could be a variety of sources for that.
But we've got the ducks, whoever it is, right?
Oh. Okay. Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't notice your hand. Yeah. I'm sorry. Can you say again louder? Yep. 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 Mm-hmm. There's certainly ways that you could modify the land to prevent it from getting there. I don't know. I don't know exactly. In some areas, they absolutely are. I can't speak to Orient. I don't know.
I'm not sure. Problem might
Yes. I don't know the answer to that. We didn't really look into that, but I can. Hold on, let me go check. Yeah, so this is just showing the last 10 years, and it looked pretty good. Well, based on these two data points, it starts to go up a little bit. 2016. Okay. I'm sorry, I think you're next. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thanks. I think you're up. No, 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 no. We didn't collect any samples. Yeah. They have done that kind of source testing. I think they did it in Matatuck. I forget the name of the Cornell Cooperative Extension has done a lot of it. It's pretty cool because you can distinguish, is it human waste? You know, is it septic systems that are failing? Is it birds? Is it mammals? Is it dogs? You know, like you can get very detailed. There's not many people who do it, but the one like Cornell Cooperative Extension out here, the marine resources people, their lab can do it. Yeah. When you say we, yeah. There is definitely a cost for it, but it would be if it's a problem, if it's impacting an area that you'd like to use for shellfishing, then it could certainly be explored.
the data points are going up and then
Yeah. There's typically a batch of reasons. Sometimes the state closes areas if there's been more than 3 or 4 inches of precipitation in a day. It's just kind of an administrative closure because they're thinking everything that was on the ground surface is going to be washed in and contaminate an area until they could test and confirm it. It's like out of an abundance of caution. So sometimes it's rain driven. Sometimes certain harbors are closed during certain seasons just because boats kind of flush and that's a cause of it. I don't think this, you don't have a lot of boats in that part, no. Okay. Maybe it, if it's a wastewater issue, I would say yes. If it's a bird issue, no. No, I don't think so. Yeah. No, I mean, they still pee, but yes. Yeah. 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 I think you're right. Yeah, thank you. Okay. So I did want to mention temperature. We'll tie it together later. The USGS monitor also shows a wide variation in temperature. One of the things that we're very concerned about in climate change is increased temperature, not just the air, but also the water. You don't, this is only 10 years, so you don't see a long-term record. In Long Island Sound, they have a longer period of record, and they are clearly showing that the temperature is going up as they project. That's important for a few reasons. A lot of, and again, Chris Gobler can speak much more articulately about this. This is his area of expertise, but not just here, not just in Suffolk County, throughout the world, you're seeing an increased number of harmful algal blooms, an increased intensity of harmful algal blooms, and increased duration of these harmful algal blooms, because now you're getting, the waters are getting to the temperature where they thrive and where they can really, it's like a good habitat for them. So that's one of the key issues with increased water temperature. The other, oh, I should have started off to say that really your surface water quality right now is excellent. It's really very good, aside from the pathogens in that one spot. But with climate change, I think the most significant stress won't be the goats or whatever it is. I really think it's going to be climate change. And that's because of the HABs, sea level rise and increased temperature kind of are going to impact any eelgrass or wetland areas that you have. The eelgrass apparently likes the cold water that comes. Remember we said the groundwater underflow? This is why I'm having trouble answering your question about taking the carrying capacity of the aquifer, because I don't know exactly how much groundwater in each area is needed to kind of keep these wetland vegetation thriving. But I've seen enough studies that say that the cold water coming from the groundwater that is at their roots is very beneficial, and that they survive better in those areas. This is something that I know concerns Barbara and Glynis. As the water level goes up, as the water table goes up, that, let me back up. Suffolk County's sanitary code requires that there be a minimum of 3 feet separation between the bottom of your leaching system, your septic system, and the seasonal high water table. As the sea level starts coming up, that unsaturated zone starts to go down. The reason why that's important is for the pathogens. It's not for the nitrogen, it's for the bacteria. If they're discharged into that unsaturated zone, that's not an environment that they can really survive in, right? There's no moisture, it's dry, they survive in a wet environment. So if that sea level comes up and is at the bottom of your septic system, now you've made a direct conduit from your wastewater to both the groundwater and then discharging to the surface waters, which is what you don't want to see. So that's an, ooh, sorry again. And then one of the things that they're saying, and we're seeing it, the USGS predicted probably 20 years ago, that with climate change, we were going to see more frequent storm events, higher intense events of precipitation, and we are seeing in that, and that washes off any contaminant that's on the ground surface that could come from animals. So I think we're all saying the same thing, right? Like we're all seeing the same potential problems. And that climate change, that temperature is also seeing the changes, is also part of the cause of the finfish population changes that you're seeing. Okay, now we'll get to the issues, and I think we can go through these a little bit more quickly. 3 primary water resource issues of concern. I would say number 1, it would be climate change. Watch for you guys. Number 2 is your potable water supply. And number 3 is wastewater management. Climate change, I think we just talked through all the impacts already. Nothing new on that slide. Barbara, this is something you had asked us to do. This is that redone graph based on just homes. So thinking that you want to have at least like 40 feet of fresh water for your well, like maybe like a 20-foot well screen and 20 foot into this green line here. So, yep, thank you. I'm getting there, but you pushing me along. That's good. That's good. Right now, there's about 160 homes that have depth to that saltwater interface less than 40 feet. So that's not even a quarter of your population. Yep, sure. So what we looked at is, this was in response to a question from your committee. How many homes are really going to be impacted as the saltwater interface comes up in terms of your wells? So if you think you want at least 40 feet of fresh water for a potable supply well, right? Right now, there's about 160 homes where you have 40 feet or less. There's about 90, and I have a table we could look at if you want, rather than this. There's about 90 homes that have less than 30 feet. And there's just under 50 homes that have less than 20 feet of fresh water for their potable supply. Okay, so moving forward, 2030, there's not a huge jump. Oh, sorry again. 2030, there's not a huge jump. Maybe it goes from 160 to 191. Maybe it is. 30 homes are going to have a measurable reduction in the thickness of the fresh water. 100 homes are going to have less than 30 feet, and we might have gone from 48 to 50 for less than 20 feet. It's not too, like, you don't see big changes, Barbara, until you get out to like 2100, where you start seeing over a quarter of your residences are going to have less than 40 feet. I'm sorry. 840 or something like that, 829 or, yeah, I'm sorry. We could probably look it up. I don't know if this will help. I just want to make sure, like, these little dots don't represent homes, they represent parcels, like specific building lots. These are the areas that are going to be most vulnerable. And there's a little color code there that we could share this. People, you could find your general area and pick out what color your dot is, I guess. Okay. All right. Sorry. Nope. Nope. In this one, this is parcels. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I know the other one. Yes, we did build structures. Okay. So those are your 3 issues. We're going to talk about some potential solutions. One thing that your committee emphasized at the beginning is they wanted like actionable responses. So climate change is like bigger than Orient. Climate change is not something that you guys can tackle on your own. And the other thing is that water resources issues, your water supplies and wastewater has to be considered in the context of a much bigger framework, right? Like the homes themselves, access to the homes, roadways and stuff. So I'm going to say none of these alternatives are any fun. You know, you could just let it march through and pick off homes one by one or wells one by one. You could explore elevating different areas. At any rate, that's part of a broader sustainability or resiliency study. But what you can do, there's a lot of grants available. There's a lot of educational information available. You know, you could seek at the federal, state, county, town. I don't know what South Oak is doing, to be honest, but federal, state, county, they're all doing something, and there's a lot of information and workshops and support that you can get to kind of look into this. So that would be climate change. When we started thinking about wastewater, and I apologize, there's a typo there that I feel like fixing it now, but I guess we'll just, sorry, jump back in. You know how many times I look at this? It's amazing that it got by. I'm sorry. Yep, I know. When we first looked at it, we were looking at this specifically from the nitrogen standpoint. So there's no action again. The IA systems that the county is funding, maybe creation of a centralized sewage system. Just to address nitrogen, you could also do fertilizer management, put in the permeable reactive barriers that kind of intercept the high nitrogen groundwater that's discharging to surface waters. We've done some pilots like in East Hampton and Brookhaven that Cornell Cooperative Extension did the ones in Brookhaven that have been extremely successful. Yep. You just put in like carbon, you put in like media along underground, and it kind of intercepts the groundwater and it removes the nitrogen before it goes out. The one in East Hampton was a series of injection wells that we're injecting, it's like an oil. What's that? I'm sorry? Yeah. Yep. To be honest, it wasn't an area of super high nitrogen to begin with, but it was reducing the nitrogen. At least I've only seen one round of data, and it seemed the last data that Cornell Cooperative Extension provided. Yeah, it was looking. I'm sorry, did you say something there? Yeah. You did it in Southampton too? Yeah. Okay. But as Barbara provided this nice graph here, this nice figure, as she's reminded us, wastewater management is much more than just nitrogen alone. And this explains much more clearly than my words how as sea level comes up, all to your septic system, now you have that direct conduit for pathogens to go out. So sea level rise is much more important. So should we just wrap? We're starting to lose people, I guess. Yeah, sorry, gone way too long. Potential water supply solutions. We looked at no action, individual home treatment systems, both point of use right at your sink or point of your whole household. Suffolk County Water Authority supply to Orient, the whole community, or just the village, or a new village supply. And recognizing that kind of like a hot point, right? Like people have very strong feelings about, should we have Suffolk County water? Should we not have Suffolk County water? We tried to make it as objective as we could and looked at a whole batch of different criteria. It's not like, do you like it or do you not like it? Like, is it costly? Is it reliable? Is it going to achieve your objectives? So we established these 10 criteria, and we worked with members of OA's water committee to say, how important is each one to you? And then how does these solutions kind of rank? What Barbara and Daniel suggested to us is it would be more useful, rather than sharing ranks, just to say the pluses and minuses, the advantages and disadvantages of each, kind of as a start to a conversation that you as a community may want to have. So we'll start with no action. And I'll explain why I have perceived in there as we get actual and perceived benefits and disadvantages as we get a little further in. And you guys might have more than just this. But to me, you guys have complete and total autonomy and control over your water supply, easy to implement, right? not that expensive to operate. It could be a deterrent to development I mean, zoning is your first deterrent, but then in terms of compliance with the sanitary code. The disadvantages are your shallow wells are vulnerable to contamination, and they're going to remain vulnerable to contamination, as well as coastal wells or even highly pumped wells in inland a little bit are going to be vulnerable to saltwater intrusion and upconing in the future as sea level rises. Home treatment systems, they certainly provide an increased protection of human health. You maintain your independence. Again, straightforward and easy to implement, right? You don't need any permits. You don't need any special stuff for that. And you can implement it immediately. Some of the disadvantages are some of you, not all of you, some of you have excellent water, but some of you may have to treat for a variety of contaminants. So if I put on GAC to address PFAS, that's not going to do anything for nitrates, right? You need like reverse osmosis or something like that for nitrates. So you could end up with a very I'm sorry? Nope, it's not going to do anything about the chlorides either, and that's probably even more important. So you might need a whole variety of treatment systems, or it might be hard to even find anything that's going to address the whole suite that an individual well might have. As Barbara points out, you're going to remain vulnerable to saltwater intrusion. Capital costs could be small, or they could be quite large, depending on what kind of system you're putting in. Same with operation. If you just Google that, you'll see the ranges are very wide, from a couple hundred to a few thousand. You have to maintain them. You can't just put them in and forget about it. So it's a commitment that you're making, and you're still going to have to keep testing your wells regularly. You're still not really going to know, because if you're just testing it once a year, you might not really know what's going on. Still much better than no action. Here's like the hot button one. So what's that? Oh, Suffolk County Water Authority. It's going to provide the highest level of health protection because they regularly test their water. It complies with drinking water criteria. To your point, Barbara, they are complying with the PFAS criteria now. I know they're a little bit ahead of schedule, but they are. It's my understanding that they're doing 4, because you don't design for 10 or 9. You design to get rid of it. So I can't speak to that to say that everything's been completely, but that's their intent. Yeah. So right. You always design, as a designer, you always throw safety factors on top of things so that you always comply. You're not going to be impacted by solar intrusion or upconing or flooding or anything like that. You're going to have a reliable supply of clean water. And that's consistent with the health department recommendations. So the actual disadvantages are you lose the independent control. It's going to take years to implement something like that. It's not something that you can just go to, the local store and throw in. It takes planning, permitting, years of construction, let's say. Your roads are going to be ripped up when they put pipes in. There's no doubt about it. That's not something pleasant. What I've bolded here is what perceived disadvantages are: capital cost and annual cost. I spent some time on the phone with Joe Picorni, who's the deputy CEO for operations. And, they're a nonprofit. They don't want to come in and give water to people, make people take water who don't want water. But they do want to provide water to people who do want it. And they're willing to meet with communities, like they're doing it in Shelter Island. Just the people in Shelter Island who want it are getting it. The other people you don't have to sign up. But at any rate, he has been working with different communities to put together a whole batch of different grants so that the capital cost for a community in Riverhead that he shared with me and a community in Southern Brookhaven is 0. He's got a batch of grants. He's got congressionally directed funding. So much he's been able to cobble together that the people don't even have to pay for the connection fees or pay for the plumbing adjustments in their house, all taken care of without any outlay from the community, from the residents. Yeah. On Orient's Rackwell? Absolutely. Absolutely. It would be a benefit in that regard. Absolutely. Yeah. No. Right. The contaminants that are there are still going to be flushed through over time, and it's going to probably take decades. Like it does, depending where you are. If you're right at the coast, it's going to go through quick. But anything that's inland is going to take a couple decades to wash out. You're right. I'm sorry. Yes. They're not. No. They are. We can get to that on the next slide, but no, they're not. They have zero plans to install wells in Orient. It wouldn't work. It's not productive enough. It's not technically feasible, really, to do that. It wouldn't be good engineering. It would come from a pipeline. Hold on. It would be conveyed via a pipeline. Right now, because you guys don't have a project, I can't tell you exactly where. It would come from further west. Is that what you're asking? It's definitely would come from further west. Where, I can't tell you what well field, because you guys don't have a project that says, let's take this amount of water and move it. Yeah. I thought I saw another. Yeah, yes, I'm sorry. Do that. I know. Yeah. Yeah. No. At the time. I will say that I know they put out, they being Suffolk County Water Authority, put out an RFP to do an EIS on the pipeline last year or 2 years ago. I know they. No, not to Orient, not to Orient. It's probably Laurel, but they were looking at a pipeline. Yeah. Oh, you're right. It's probably not the same pipeline. I don't think the RFP, I don't think included the causeway. No, I don't think it included Orient at all. But I don't know. I didn't, I wasn't really that interested in somebody else. I was asking questions about you guys. So at any rate, like I said, they're a nonprofit. If you're interested in this, it's worth a conversation with Joe. He felt very strongly that he would be able to pull together grants and congressionally directed funding and a whole series of things if it was something that people wanted to do to offset the cost or reduce the cost as much as possible. The annual cost of water, which is another concern of people. I think I looked at mine. I think last year we were using like $220 a household, which isn't crazy. When I looked on their website just before I came, just to make sure I was current, it's up over $500 for a family of 4, because now they have like the PFAS subsidies in there. It's like a quarterly charge, $25 each or something like that. But it's not crazy if you're buying bottled water. You know, I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, she left.
But it's
So,
old by.
so you pay like more than a few $100s a year?
Oh,
Wow.
I would love to give you.
Yeah. I thought they had one flat fee for everybody. I didn't realize that. Yeah. I'm just going to write that down. I'm just going to write that down because I'm going to ask Joe about that. I haven't heard that. No, but that's important information. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I know. No, but that's good to know because here I am telling you that it doesn't cost that much and you're saying, oh, excuse me, it does. Okay. What's that? Okay. Yeah, we got like 3 more slides. The other thing that committee members asked us to look into was a new Orient water supply. So you guys could retain your independence. Let's say it's going to be almost impossible to implement something like that because the aquifer is just not productive enough to have a centralized well or 2. And then you're going to have to build a treatment plant. And then you're going to have to operate it, put in the whole administrative structure to bill people. You know, you're going to have to design it, put the pipes in the ground. Then you're going to have to maintain the plant. You're going to have to have a lab to test your water or send your water out. You're going to have maintenance on it. And it still could be very challenging from a resiliency standpoint as sea level rises. The other thing is it's going to take over a decade probably to implement, which is going to be too late for some of you guys. And way, way, way more costly. So we would, again, very sorry. Suffolk County Water Authority kind of hits all the marks, but the association recognized that a lot of the community feels very strongly that public water is not the solution. So they put together a little survey. I didn't know if you shared those results with everybody. Or did you? So almost 40% were very adamant, no interest in Suffolk County Water Authority. 35% said, yeah, maybe, yeah, yes, actually. And 25% said maybe. So clearly not everybody's on the same page. There's a lot of thought, you know, that you have to put into it as to where you want to go. So we're trying to help put together as much information as you can so that you guys can make an informed decision. Things that you can do in the meantime. Take advantage of Suffolk County Department of Health Services private well testing program. $100, they do a complete test, and then you'll know what you're drinking. You'll know if you need to provide any kind of treatment and what that treatment is. And they're very helpful if you need assistance in figuring out what to do. I don't have to tell you guys, I'm sure Glynis tells you all the time about conserving water, right? Don't irrigate. Just limit the areas that you have to irrigate, particularly in the summer. Use any available programs to dispose of hazardous materials. Don't dump stuff. Don't flush stuff. Unused medications you can bring to CVS. It looks like the closest one to you is at like Riverhead or Mattatuck. Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, that's good. I'm sorry. The police department will take it? Oh, great. Okay. Yeah, like just don't flush it. Like the old, you know, they used to tell you flush that, don't do it. Just don't do it. I think last time we shared a batch of websites for cleaning products, household products. Choose wisely. Limit your use of fertilizers. And so yeah, if there's any questions, sorry, I really talked.
choices.
Mhm.
Question partners. Water line is being put up. Orient, right now. But
I don't know about that. I know that
So my recommendation would be, so it's going to take years to do a project like this. My recommendation would be, don't wait too long to start the conversation, so that if they know that someday, in 10 years even, you might want that water, then their infrastructure will be sized so that when you're ready, they're ready. You know what I mean? Well, I would still talk to them about it, because at this point in time, there seems to be grants and funds available. As you guys know, the economy changes. Sometimes things are good and sometimes things are not so good. But now seems to be a good time in the next couple of years. So if it's something you think you want to do, I'd at least start the conversation. You're not making a commitment. You're just saying, what can we do here? You know? I'm sorry.
Oh, but I think they can hear me. But there are other provisions that could be made to contain that. That's the other part of our meeting today, building lots and sizes. And so perhaps with that in place, the fear of the piping wouldn't be as important.
Yeah.
So, but I think, thank you. Yeah, we want to thank Mary Ann for coming here today, and also just for doing this project for us, which has taken a lot longer than anticipated. You want to make this short? Okay. Okay. All right.
I'm the Democratic candidate for New York Assembly.
Oh, we tried. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have to make it a PDF to send it.
Okay, we will do that. This has been recorded on Zoom, but it's easier to see the presentation separately. And we will have a written report.
Yep.
So if you have comments that you think maybe should be addressed in the report, please send them to there's an info@orientassociation.org email that you can send comments to. And if you want to have a follow-up meeting, that would be great. We probably aren't going to ask Mary Ann to come back, but
maybe virtually or something.
Yeah, maybe we could do it virtually. Yeah. No, you want to talk about that? You mean about Chris? Did you have something?
I just want to make sure to thank everybody in the community that contributed to our effort. We went out about 3 years ago,
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't, and yes, we should absolutely.
Very hard.
Happy to share.
Well, tell that zoning advisory committee to watch the video. Yeah, and we'll have it on our website. Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
All right, thank
Sorry,
you. Thank you all for
once I just
coming.
keep going, right?